have some data to discuss. First of all, homicides year to date, as of midnight yesterday, we are showing 357. 357 now, 440 last year, 454 the year before. We are at 357. 2 years ago, we were at 454. So as compared to last year, this is 83 fewer homicides. It's a decrease of about 19%. As compared to 2 years ago, we're looking at something north of 21% in terms of the level of reduction. If we look more generally at violent crime, just as a way of seeing where things are going in general, we see that in 5 out of 6 categories, 5 out of 6, violent crime is down. And we see that it's down overall. The only category that is up is aggravated assault other, meaning aggravated assault where they are not denoting connection to a gun. So the gun violence categories appear all to be down. And if we look more specifically, because I'm speaking now about homicides, some homicides are with guns, some are not, the vast majority with. But if we talk about shootings specifically, we are showing, according to PPD data, a 25% reduction in shooting incidents so far this year, and a 26%, actually a little bit more than 26, reduction in shooting victims this year. As we look to the 137 gun possession or gun violence incidents, what we see are 65 arrests made by law enforcement. Out of those 137 incidents, 65 arrests. And from the 65 arrests that were, of course, referred to our office for charging, 64 cases were opened and charged. The bails in these cases continue to disappoint, frankly, but that's just going to be how it is, as long as we have a cash bail system instead of one that works. Obviously, these represent significant improvement, but none of it is enough for the people who live in neighborhoods that are constantly dealing with the sound of gunshots, blood on the street, people being shot. Obviously, there is no level of homicide that is acceptable. And I want to be very clear. Anybody who is thinking about picking up a gun, or maybe already did, keep an eye on what happened here. This did not go well for Mr. Ortiz. It did not go well for other people connected to him, in fact, connected to him very closely when they picked up a gun. These are people who are now looking at expiring in jail. They're facing sentences of life without the possibility of parole. And that is, in fact, the accountability of the people who pick up a gun and point it at the heart or the head or another vital part of the body of another person and take their life. This is the consequence that is waiting for you. It is now my pleasure to introduce Michelle Tulak-Neal, who is a victim witness coordinator and who will be providing a report on the services provided by the DAO's Victim Support Services Unit, which of course includes CARES, CARES being the part that is specifically dedicated to working with the families of homicide victims. Michelle.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Michelle Tulak-Neal, and that's spelled T-U-L-L-O-C-H, hyphenated N-E-I-L. I have been in the field of the District Attorney's Office for over 20 years, and I've always been in the juvenile unit, a unit that I have come to love and appreciate because I am able to make a difference in the community and the lives that I've encountered over the last 20 years. There's an acronym that I think of each time I have to answer a call or I have to make a call. And I call it SAC. And S stands for support, A stands for advocacy, and C stands for compensation. At the same time, while I'm providing this to all victims, I'm always expressing empathy, and that's something that you must have in order to connect with what they're going through. At the same time, it's important to be an active listener, not listening and hoping to give your answer, but to understand what they are going through. So my job includes helping to protect victims' rights while assisting victim with the process of navigating through the legal system. There are a lot of people that come in contact with the legal system and that have no idea. And juvenile unit is so different from adult unit, so it's important for us to explain the entire process, how long it will take, and what options are available to them. They usually have a lot of questions, and we provide the answers that are needed. Education is always a piece of everything that we do. The more educated you are, the more informed you are able to make a decision, basically on what comes down the line. And by educating them with the entire process, they know the level of engagement that will require for them throughout the case process. It's important as a victim witness coordinator to connect with the victims, and we do this beautifully, I think. That's why I'm still here after 20 years. But also, we capitalize and use the opportunity with community agencies that are doing a wonderful job. We don't always have all the answers, but there are organizations out there that we can refer our victims to, and they are really a true gem in the community. Their victims will always need healing, and this is one way we can always piggyback on these organizations as well. As early as this morning, I got a call about VCAP, that's somewhere that stands for Victim Conversation Assistance Program, and this is where we can help them with their loss, because sometimes they're not being paid quickly enough, and this can help our victims one-on-one. For me, it is seeing how individuals are able to thrive in the wake of victimization. It's about creating that bridge between old normal and new normal. And what do I mean by this is that, okay, this is my life, but now I'm victimized. What it will become my new normal? So that's where I fit into this. At the end of the day, if I can achieve that and my victims are empowered, encouraged, educated, then it's a good day. It's all about connecting people to resources, collaborating and working alongside community agencies. The vision is to serve the Philadelphia community at all times. Regarding our victims that have been impacted by homicide, after an arrest is made, we always try and notify all families by phone. And while we are on this telephone conversation, it's important for us to educate and explain the process, which also provide them, and at the same time provide them with next steps, because they usually don't know what comes next. And then, as always, creating scenarios for them. We capitalize during this outreach as well to advise of resources that are immediately available to put in place. Some are not, some will take a little while. So it's important to deal with that know-how. Please note that each case is handled differently, individually, and differently based on what kind of crime we are talking about. What support system and we can build for them as they continue along this journey. Having a support system through the entire process literally makes a world of difference, and that's what we try to do with each victim, is making sure we are there for them from the beginning to the end. Again, we provide services to all victims, those directly and indirectly affected. We are here to serve victims individually and collectively. I will provide you with the contact information at the end, but I just wanted to give you an updated information on what's happening with the CARES program, the Crisis Response Team. Last week, they were successful in responding to 3 families and provided 9 services to those families. Again, the best way to reach us is through the Victim Witness Service number, which is 215-686-8027. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. It's now my pleasure to introduce 88 Kathleen Lewis to speak about the conviction of Michael Ortiz in the shooting of Luis Alcazar, who's the victim. That's A-L-C-A-Z-A-R. There came a moment. This is a case that was not easy to solve. It took intense work by a number of detectives and also a special agent of the FBI. Those detectives deserve a lot of credit for not just closing a file, for their patience, for all the different ways they tried to get at a problem and solve a case, whereas is often the situation. There were not a bunch of witnesses, not a bunch of perfect evidence. And they worked on it for 6 months before they made an arrest. Those detectives are Morano, Mullen, Lucky, and Special Agent Jeff Galliardo. I will leave it to 88 Kathleen Lewis to give give you the spellings and the details on the excellent work that they did. But there came a moment when that patience and that diligence paid off. And that moment involved a communication, essentially a phone call, but a recorded phone call between defendant Michael Ortiz and his brother. Sadly, his brother was also involved in shootings. His brother was also involved in homicide. And there came a moment when defendant Michael Ortiz said things that connected him to a car that was used in this killing that was a turning point in this case. I will leave all the details to ADA Kathleen Lewis, who has been in and around this office with the exception of a couple of years since she was 18 years old, and who has during that career spent about 7 total years as a prosecutor, done something like 15 jury trials, and this is one more success in a very, very impressive and successful career. I'll leave it for her to get into the details. But let me at this time call ADA Kathleen Lewis of the DAO's Homicide Non-Fatal Shooting Unit forward to get into some of these specifics, and then I will return so we can do some Q&A. All right? ADA Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Krasner. Good morning, everyone. As Mr. Krasner indicated, my name is Kathleen Lewis. So this case against Michael Ortiz occurred nearly 3 years ago, January 28, 2021, on the 5700 block of Walker Street in the Wissanomi section of Philadelphia. The decedent, Luis Alcazar, who was 33 years old at the time, had just had his first child. He woke up in the middle of the night to feed his baby. The baby was crying. He goes down to check his phone, and he turns to his fiancée at the time and says, "Hey, I'm going to meet Coke. I'll be right back." So Luis leaves the house. He meets with the defendant. There were text messages from the defendant telling Luis where to meet him on the 5700 block of Walker Street. Luis arrives. The defendant, there's video in this case, you cannot see the defendant's face. The defendant gets inside of that car, and about after 5 minutes, the decedent, Mr. Alcazar, was shot 3 times by the defendant. He was shot once lethally in the chest, and then as he tried to run and escape his own vehicle, he was shot again in the right lower back and his right hip. He made it about 15 feet before collapsing and dying in the middle of the 5700 block of Walker Street. This case would not have been able to be solved without the homicide unit, everybody within the homicide unit in Philadelphia. So what the detectives did in this case, the first thing that they did was, before even speaking to anybody, look for video. They were able to find video in this case, not only of the homicide, which, yes, it was helpful. The defendant also is seen taking a bag from the decedent's car. But you have the path of travel of Michael Ortiz as he runs back to a very, very distinct vehicle that was parked right around the corner from the homicide. It was a white Chrysler 200, but the front left bumper and quarter panel were covered with black metal. That was extremely important in this case because a patrol alert was created by Detective Morano that was then circulated to all of the Philadelphia Police Department. Officer Smith from the 25th District immediately recognized that, the vehicle, because he was the one who actually was chasing or trying to apprehend the defendant when the defendant crashed his car, causing that damage. He was able to identify Michael Ortiz because he had tried to stop him 3 times in that same car. In addition, the defendant himself, Detective Morano was able to get a tablet call in this case from Francisco Ortiz to his brother Michael Ortiz, where he's showing him the damage of that car, again indicating that it is his car. And again, Francisco Ortiz, at this time, he was in prison. He was serving life without the possibility of parole for murdering somebody in September of 2019. Shortly after that September 2019 homicide, He also shot an 11-month-old child. That was a delayed death, and was also recently convicted of that, and is also serving 37 and a half to 85 years. Michael Ortiz is serving life without the possibility of parole as well. So in addition to that car, detectives did multiple search warrants, Instagram accounts, iCloud accounts, forensic phone extractions, and also search warrants for call detail records, because there was a text message exchange in this case where the defendant is asking Mr. Alcazar to meet up with him, and we were never able to, there was no subscriber information, so the case was all very circumstantial. We needed to put all of the pieces together. Those pieces were not able to be put together without the work of detectives. Special Agent Jeff Gallardo did a CAS report. He was able to plot the location of that phone and where it was traveling. Those times matched up with the video times. So it was a really big effort. It wasn't a short investigation. It took 6 months. It took longer than that because it takes a while to get results back for search warrants. So I do want to thank all of those individuals, Detective Morano, Detective Mullen, Detective Thorsten Lucky, and Special Agent Jeff Gallardo for all of their hard work, hours and hours of hard work, as well as the Alcazar family. They were instrumental throughout the week-long trial of Michael Ortiz. They were supportive of this office in every way possible. They were very happy with the outcome, and they are just so happy to have justice for their son. Thank you.